My name is Said Moniakani, Executive Director of CEPO. I'd like to use this opportunity to express my opinion on the development around peace and stability in Sudan. As you are all aware, that the political linkage we have between Juba and Khartoum is too lean. Instability in Sudan will affect immediately instability in South Sudan, or political instability in Khartoum will have a direct replication on stability in Juba. So we are so much linked. First, I'd like to use this opportunity to say I would like to appeal to the government of South Sudan to take a responsibility for safety and security of our own citizens that were trapped in the deadly violence in Sudan. And we have seen after the incident of Medeni, I don't repeat it, but I feel still that our government of South Sudan have not taken enough responsibility to ensure repatriation of South Sudanese citizens from various towns of Sudan. Yes, welcome our ambassador in New York in challenging the behaviors of the warring parties of Sudan in an international space like UN Security Council, and we have seen how Sudan responded aggressively, but we hope that such challenge should be able to be translated for safety and security of our citizens who are in Sudan, and we know that most of them are trapped at the borders when some of them attempt to come voluntarily, and some of them lost their lives and families have lost their loved ones. That's the first thing that I'd like to raise in regard to Sudan's situation. Sudan's situation is very important for us as South Sudanese specifically. As activists, as you all are aware, that IGAD have assigned an IGAD special envoy to mediate peace in Sudan, and that seat was given to a South Sudanese, and you are aware His Excellency President have appointed our lawyer, Honorable Lawrence Kurbandi, as the IGAD special envoy for Sudan file under IGAD docket. And we feel as South Sudanese, as activists, that we have a responsibility to call our government who is holding the docket of a IGAD special envoy to Sudan to demonstrate a responsibility of finding solution in Sudan crisis. But also we are aware that Sudan crisis have attracted some regional and international actors who have a vested interest in Sudan, and they will extend also their influence to us in South Sudan. And one case in study, or one example I can give you, is the role of the UAE. You are aware of the role UAE is playing in Sudan crisis, and now we have seen also UAE coming to South Sudan, and we have seen construction of hospital in northern Barghazali state. We are a bit worried that from various social media, supporters of Sudan government or Sudan armed forces who are saying the role of UAE in the region is so negative, it's not for the best interest of peace and security in Sudan. We are a bit worried of what we have seen between Sudan warring parties and Chad and UAE may be translated to South Sudan. So we want to appeal to our government to take really a neutral ground with regard to the political situation in Sudan. And we have seen, based on this particular call that I'm making, we have seen also already the regional actors playing a role on Sudan file. You might have seen the latest development that the president of Kenya have done, have raised a lot of tensions. And remember, Kenya is a country that is holding also our peace process. So as an activist and as a member of East African Civil Society, I'm concerned about the development in Kenya, which have linked with Sudan crisis, and that has a direct implication on our political stability in South Sudan. So we want to appeal that the leadership of South Sudan, and specifically in relation within the context of East African Community or IGAD or AU, should play a positive role with its neighbors to ensure that any intervention in Sudan is for the best interest of peace and security for Sudanese that are yearning for peace and stability, since the warring parties in Sudan have taken arms into their hands. And we are aware that South Sudan will have a diplomatic role to play for the best interest of peace and stability in the region, whether at the space of AU or at the space of IGAD or a space of UN or at the space of East African Community. And I think South Sudan to play a big role. And we are aware that the Sudanese warring parties have a support base in South Sudan. And if you go to the market today, the market electronics is so much run, and even some of the business sector were run by Sudanese businesses whom we think they also have a political affiliations to any either of the warring parties in Sudan. And that's why South Sudan have a moral responsibility to ensure that Sudan's situation is taken up seriously. If South Sudan government tend to ignore the political development in Sudan, these are the following implications on us in South Sudan. The first implication is that the resumption of the oil that everybody is waiting for may not take place effectively, because the warring parties in Sudan may have a position on the resumption of the oil. And remember, we are 80% depending on the oil revenue. And because of that, that gives us a very strong responsibility to be proactively, to stand up and offer a neutral ground for the mediation of the problem of Sudan. And that's why I'd like to use this opportunity to appeal to His Excellency President to effect the function of the IGAD Special Envoy to Sudan, which is the office of Honorable Lawrence Kurbande, who is appointed by the president. We need the president to operationalize his decree for appointing a South Sudanese to hold the seat of IGAD Special Envoy to Sudan. That for me is critical. And if it could have been for best interest of South Sudanese to see peace in Sudan, actually, right now, South Sudan could have established a think tank body that work together with the Lawrence Kurbande to see how do we address the file of Sudan crisis, since the IGAD docket for peace mediation in Sudan is with us. I've seen this particular file been delayed for long, and my appeal goes to His Excellency President to effect it. Secondly, if we intend to ignore the political development in Sudan, since we have population of Sudan, we should be ready to hold or to host Sudanese refugees that are unable to proceed to either Uganda or Kenya or Chad. They may come to South Sudan. And if they come to South Sudan, this is another pressure to our economic and humanitarian capability. And remember, we're almost 60% humanitarian dependent on humanitarian assistance. So how much will that mean to South Sudan? The second thing is that because we are in a political instability, we have seen how much armed conflict is going among our communities, whether at intra-community level or inter-community level. If we still allow violence to go in Sudan and there's a flow of arms to Sudan, likely our communities may access ammunitions and armament from the Sudan warring parties if they realize that the clashes like what happened now in Nasir, if any warring parties in Sudan realize that Nasir is a marketplace for selling guns and bullets, they may invest. So it means there's a high chances that transfer of arms and ammunition from Sudan to our conflicting parties is very high if we undermine the situation in Sudan. So what does this mean in conclusion? This means South Sudan need to raise and beef up its political strength in ensuring that the crisis in Sudan is quickly mitigated. But when we are intervening through the docket of the IGAD Special Envoy to create peace in Sudan, we should not use that as a hanger to hang the R-Access. They should also remember that they have responsibility to implement the R-Access. They should not delay the R-Access implementation. That's something I'd like to bring forward. One thing I don't want to forget is that South Sudanese are trapped in the violence in Sudan. There are efforts going on through a voluntary work that people have volunteered to mobilize themselves for the return of South Sudanese on voluntary basis. I would like to urge our business society, being South Sudanese business society or foreign business society in South Sudan, please contribute for those initiatives that are working towards return of our citizens through a voluntary services. I hope that the private companies like businesses, telecom companies can help in putting something little to help facilitation of South Sudanese who voluntarily want to return to South Sudan, because this initiative is going on. But also this gives me an opportunity to call on the cabinet and specifically the government under the docket of the Vice President for the cluster of youth where with the humanitarian ministry falls under it, Her Excellency Mama Rebecca, that the country should hold an urgent humanitarian conference on the status of South Sudanese who are trapped in the Sudan crisis, because it's very important for us to do that so that we can provide. And my message to South Sudanese, all Sudanese who are in South Sudan have not committed any crime against South Sudanese in Sudan. So we should not target any Sudanese business person here or any Sudanese citizen in South Sudan on the expenses of atrocities committed against South Sudanese by the warring parties. All Sudanese who are in South Sudan are free. They are not criminals and should not hold them accountable because of the acts committed against our citizens by the warring parties of Sudan. So this would I like to bring forward to your attention, and I hope that the leadership of South Sudan will use AU, will use IGAD to make sure Sudan crisis is sorted out, and we are aware that the crisis in Sudan, it have a direct implication on South Sudan, and also in the international level, we share the same Troika group. The Troika group at the international level for South Sudan is the same Troika group for Sudan. We hope that also the Troika group will take a holistic approach in finding peace and stability in Sudan and South Sudan. We should not make the other to be the best the other. South Sudan and Sudan peace have to be taken in a comprehensive and holistic manner. Thank you very much.